All right, welcome to episode number 9 of the Jake Blanchard podcast. Today, my guest is my friend Brian Baker. Brian is a personal trainer. He's based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, but we are not going to be talking about lifting weights today. We're going to be spending a lot of our time talking about a nonprofit that Brian has set up. We're going to talk about respect, and we're going to talk about decency. And I think this is just such a timely conversation, one to definitely pay attention to. Brian has a great story here. I'm looking forward to him unpacking it for us and letting us know what the inspiration was for respect and decency, why it's so needed right now in the times, and what you can do to support this particular organization. Brian, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me, Jake. It's great to be here.
Dude, it is, and it's a pleasure. Just to get folks acclimated, I know Brian through this intensive personal growth, leadership development group, this brotherhood that we're part of, the Modern Day Night Project. Brian, before we dive in, man, how has that Modern Day Night Project changed your life or changed your perspective on things?
Man, it was probably the most challenging experience of my life, right? Both in duration and intensity. And it really drove home the point to me that I can accomplish anything that I put my mind to, as long as I never give up. Also, one of the things that I learned from it is that we can accomplish anything as a team, right?
Absolutely.
It's all about teamwork, working together, unity. And as an individual, you can be weak, but as a team, you will be strong and you cannot be defeated.
I love that. You know, I walked away with so many like powerful reflections about myself, about society, about my occupation, and you know that program is so well orchestrated. Shout out to Bedros Keuilian and Aaron Allen Hundrino and Ray Cashcare, Steve Eckert, Matt Schneider, all the gentlemen out there and the project who put it together. But you know, certainly it has helped me launch aspects of my career that I'd been wanting to do for a long time. Arguably, it was one of those motivating factors that helped me continue to push this podcast out and some of the things. You're doing some interesting stuff right now. You on our leadership call that we had last month, you started to unpack this respect and decency concept, and I just fell in love with it immediately. I think you're doing all the right stuff. Why don't you tell us about it? Why don't you give us a story about why you started it?
Yeah. So basically it arose out of a situation. There's kind of two parts to it. One is a situation that I had as an individual, and two was the situation that we're all experiencing in our society. So I live in the suburb of Minneapolis, and as I'm sure you're well aware, the climate was pretty intense here over the summer, just given the events that transpired. And that really has not really, it hasn't really subsided completely, right? It has gone out of our consciousness to an extent, but it's still there. There's still this undercurrent, right? And that is reflected in our personal interactions. And I had an experience with an individual in my community where, in my opinion, we had a positive relationship and things were good. And then kind of out of nowhere, this guy just went off on me, right? And just vented his rage on me and made it very personal. And in my opinion, was trying to bait me into a response. And just to give you some context, I am mixed race. And so I identify as a person of color. And I felt like in this instance, I did not have the ability to respond in kind. I did not feel like I was able to protect myself or defend myself in this situation. And from really this onslaught or this assault. And to add to that, this guy took out a pocket knife and was sharpening it as he was going after me, right? And so I took that as a veiled threat of violence. And it's possible that he was trying to bait me into a physical altercation so that he could take it to the next level. I tried my best to use my words to calm him down, and there was no calming him down, right? And I reflected on that and thought about what was the best way to respond, right? Instead of reacting in the moment, I distanced myself from the situation and thought about, how can I remedy this situation? And it was obvious to me that he was not going to be open to conversation, that a dialogue between us was probably not going to be productive. And it's possible that that instance extends beyond me, and that that's relevant in our broader society as well. So I had the idea to create a shirt that said respect on the front and decency on the back. And excuse me, that enabled me to make a statement without raising my voice, without being baited into conflict. I didn't have to say a word to this individual. I could make it be known how I feel and what I stand for without engaging and without inviting any more negativity or conflict into my life. And I reflected on it further, and I realized that this was not just this isolated instance, but this is a symptom of what's going on in our broader society. That one, we are all feeling the pressure of COVID, right? Of having to wear a mask and all these restrictions and businesses being closed and the effects that that's having on the economy and our personal relationships and on and on and on, right? And all of our stress levels are ratcheted up, right? Everybody's a little bit more on edge. You can sense it when you're driving, and just, the personal interactions between people in public, there's less respect, less decency. And I thought that I wanted to get more people to adopt this message, to adopt these principles in their day-to-day living. So I wanted to make these shirts available to people, but I didn't want to do it for personal gain. It didn't feel right to me to create a for-profit. I wanted to create a nonprofit. And on top of that, I wanted to create a nonprofit that fundraises not just for one cause, but for a variety of causes, so that this can become a unifying force rather than a dividing force. So we can take people on whatever side of whatever issue, and hopefully we can all agree on respect and decency and treat each other with respect and decency, because I feel like we've really gotten away from that as a society.
Wow, that's extremely powerful. I'm taking a step back and thinking about the original conversation that you brought up, and my perception based on the way that you described it. I know you omitted some details, probably purposefully here, but I imagine that conversation was rooted deeply in a racial conversation about the times. Is that kind of what it was, or were there some perceptions there, or I'm just trying to understand, like, what was the seed that started to grow this conversation that became tense?
Sure. So the context of the conversation actually had nothing to do with race, right? But like I was saying, that doesn't mean that the undercurrent isn't there, right?
Okay.
And I felt like, because I identify as a person of color, that he felt comfortable treating me in this way,
Oh,
and
sure.
in that I would not be able to respond, because if I did, I would be labeled as violent. I would be labeled as dangerous. But
Mm.
he can do this to me and with no consequence. And the reality is, life is not fair. Society is not fair, and I don't expect it to be. But I thought long and hard about, what can I do? If I can't respond in kind to him, what can I do? And this seemed like the appropriate option.
Yeah, and I'd love to talk a little bit more about these two words, respect and decency. So, obviously your brand here, your nonprofit is anchored in those two words. You unpacked kind of what it meant to you, showing respect to your front, decency to your back. Maybe talk a little bit more about, your vision for how this will have an impact on society. If you see hundreds and hundreds of people wearing these respect, thousands of people, maybe millions, wearing the respect shirt and the decency on the back. How do you think that that's going to create an impact?
Yeah. Well, the shirt. Thank you for touching on that. Yeah, they say respect on the front and decency on the back, and the shirt is supposed to serve as a reminder not only to the person wearing it, but to everyone that you encounter, to show respect and decency. And the goal is to unify people, right? To have less conflict, because I'm sure you're familiar with the saying, "United we stand, and divided we fall." Right? And going back to the project, the lessons that we learned in the project is that we are stronger as a team, and the more division we have amongst ourselves, the less we're going to get accomplished, the worse life is going to be for all of us. And we don't have to agree on everything, but if we can show respect and decency to one another and work together, we can solve the problems that we collectively face.
Yeah, I mean, we have had such an erosion of just civility, just common courtesy, decency, respect for one another's opinions, their values, their personal experiences. I mean, it spoke to me, the second that I mean, it's such a great concept, by the way. Show respect uh, to people in front. And then when you walk away, don't go and start talking crap about them. Be decent about that person. They're an individual. They're seeing life through their lenses, their perception. Maybe even if they have bad ideas in your opinion, they just haven't come around to have experiences enough in life to change their mind about something. And oftentimes we do that. We mature in life. And I think we forget about that. We're treating each other so much today as static individuals, as if the way that you feel today in 2020 will always be the same in 2025, and as if it were the same in 2010. Right? I mean, you can probably think about beliefs that you've changed over time about the world, um, and it would be so difficult to pigeonhole people uh, in into those ways. I mean, this is, for me, this is just such a newer concept. Like, I think about this stuff all the time, but to actually have a dialogue about what respect and what decency means um, to society, we need it more than ever right now, man.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing that comes to mind is that, I wish I could attribute this quote properly, but it's everyone is operating at the highest level of awareness that they're capable of, right?
Okay.
So having that patience and that compassion and realizing that maybe not everyone has your same experience or education or whatever the case may be. Like you said, we're all seeing the world through that different lens, and having respect for that, not expecting everyone to see the world as you do, and realizing that maybe you're wrong. Right? It's easy to think that maybe somebody else is wrong, but to have the humility to think that, hey, maybe I'm wrong, to let somebody talk and be open to new ideas, which again comes back to a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, right? The idea that people can change and evolve. I know I have not always shown people respect and decency in my own life. Like I said, this shirt doesn't just serve as a reminder to everyone I encounter. It serves as a reminder to me that every day, because I feel the same stresses and pressures of everyone else. So it serves as a reminder to me too, to show respect and decency in all my interactions.
That's awesome. Hey, man, I have the website pulled up here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Maybe you can talk us through the creation of the site here, and then also, what's available, and, what you're planning to do first with some of the money raised here for respect and decency, where that money might be headed.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a few different offerings as far as the shirts go. The black and the white shirts are kind of our staple. I wanted to keep things very simple. Sometimes perfection can be the enemy of progress. So rather than, being too much of a perfectionist, I wanted to uh, be imperfect and just get something out and keep it as simple as possible. So I did all the design myself, as far as the shirts go, the logos, all that stuff. Um, and so the black and white are kind of our staples. And then for October, we are featuring the pink shirt as a way to raise funds for breast cancer awareness. So that's something that I'm pretty excited about. One of my former clients is a breast cancer survivor, just an incredible person. Also a retired public school teacher. And so that's a cause that is near and dear to my heart. So we've got our 3 shirts, and then also we have gift cards available. Those gift cards are available in $5 increments. And then you can make donations as well.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, this is just and you launched this when? I mean, I'm probably one of the first people that's getting the opportunity to talk to you about this thing. This is pretty new, right?
Yeah, this is very new. I launched this about 2 weeks ago. And, inspiration struck, and I knew that I just had to take action, right? One of the things I learned from our mentor Bedros is to take action. And sometimes it's imperfect action, but it's action nonetheless. And that's what creates momentum and forward progress.
Right. And so once again, for people who are listening, this is respectanddecency.com. In the links, whether you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or Google Play, you'll see down below, I'll include the link there so you can just follow it. Go to respectanddecency.com and support here. Purchase one of these shirts. The money is going to a great cause. And then also, what a powerful reminder it is individually, like Brian's saying, that, when you look in the mirror and you see respect written on your shirt, it's kind of hard to be an a-hole, man. I bet I bet that's the biggest part of it is you are espousing an idea, an opinion. You're putting it out there, like you said, silently, but you're still putting it out there. And I think it probably holds you to a higher moral standard as well. That's immediate change, man. I mean, if we all start doing things like that and holding ourselves to a higher standard, I think we're going to be the change that we want to see for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Our saying is wear the shirt and live the values. It's not enough to just wear the shirt. I certainly appreciate that, and the money is going to go to a good place. But the impact that we really want to make is for people to live these values.
That's incredible. So what's next for Respect and Decency? I know you said that you did the original designs here. Do you have plans, obviously, to expand? Maybe is it mostly clothing? Or are you looking to do other types of either events, or what's the ecosystem around this look like in the future? What can we expect?
Yeah, so it started off as clothing, and I'm very new to the nonprofit world as far as running a nonprofit. I've always cared about philanthropy and charitable efforts, but I am currently reaching out to people to get ideas as far as how we can grow this and how we can make the most impact with the funds that we raise, and also how to implement different initiatives to raise more funds in addition from just the clothing. I have a lot of things that I want to do as far as the clothing go, but we're looking at doing events and things like that to engender a sense of community and to bring people together. And it'd probably be on the other side of COVID, but I think that's going to be a really successful effort as well.
Yeah. And, we talked a little bit about, this is more than just a movement in Minneapolis, right? You're launching with kind of a larger reach in mind. What kind of organizations, what kinds of groups might be interested in reaching out to Respect and Decency and maybe partnering, with you for certain causes?
Yeah. So we're currently looking to partner with influencers such as yourself, people who have an existing audience and are passionate about this cause, and also other charities and nonprofits. So 10% of the profit from each shirt can go to the charity of your choice.
Okay.
So if you're going to buy a shirt and there's something that you feel passionate about, breast cancer being one, I have a good friend whose daughter has Down syndrome. I know that that's something that he feels really passionate about. We've had people who are passionate about the Wounded Warrior Project, and even local charities in their community. So charities that want to be featured as our monthly charity, I would really appreciate it if they would reach out to me so that we can be aware of what the needs are so that we can meet those needs.
Brian, man, you are doing some incredible stuff. I mean, this is really great work. A lot of people talk about it, and here you are being about it, right? Going out and saying, like, we fundamentally need to exercise higher standards of communicating with one another, showing each other respect, getting back to a time where people can have their opinions and their values. Um, but we don't judge them necessarily for that. I mean, we judge their actions, sure. But at the same time, having these social media has just gotten us into this habit of having these really rigid, nuanced discussions. And do you see any light at the end of the tunnel with the social media stuff, or like how do we combat some of this outside the face to face? Do you have any kind of digital strategies around respect and decency? Because I cannot get online today without seeing at least a handful of conversations every time I scroll that are just going off the rails, and I just don't know what to do about it, man. And I try to post positive stuff every now and then, or I try to reflect on what's going on. But certainly, how might we inject some respect and decency into our social media, into our lives in the virtual world?
Sure. Well, I think that as people, we're tribal by nature, right? And our tribes subscribe to a set of rules and a set of a code of conduct and a set of values. So the more we can do that on a micro level, the more it's going to expand to a macro level. There's a saying that we would rather be wrong together than right alone. So what we're seeing right now, I believe, is that people are engaging in conduct that they know is not the best version of themselves, but everybody else is doing it. So that makes it okay. And what I want to encourage people to do is really to be the best version of themselves. I know that sounds a little bit cliche, but maybe a better way of putting it is the highest level of themselves. It's easy to sink down to the lowest level, right? It's easy to lose your temper. It's easy to just let go. But the hard thing to do is say, what is the best way to respond? What is the best version of myself, and what does that look like? The more we can do that in our personal lives, I think that will carry over into the online world as well.
Brian, some powerful words, some knowledge bombs that you're dropping here. While I still have you, and, like I said before the podcast, and I say this at the end of every single one, 20 minutes, 30 minutes goes by so fast. What other messages do you have to get out there? Did we not touch on something that's important to you today to let the folks know? And then after that, if you could shout out where people can find you and where people can get these respect and decency shirts.
Yeah. So I wrote down a little something this morning. Just as I woke up, I watched the debates last night as well, and my goal was to make this not about politics. I mean, obviously, the political situation is something that is going on in all of our lives right now, but I didn't want this to be a political organization. I didn't want this to be about that necessarily, but I think it's worth addressing because it is something that affects all of our lives. So this is a little something that came to me this morning, and I wanted to share that. We've got to start taking responsibility for our personal conduct. The events of last night made it even more clear that this is an urgent issue. If we don't address the way that we are treating one another, things have the ability to spiral dangerously out of control. The responsibility falls on us. Leadership is a choice, not a title. Each one of us has the ability to affect the outcomes of not only our own lives, but the lives of others through our decisions and our actions. Let's take a pledge today to treat one another with respect and decency, regardless of the circumstances. If we can do this collectively, as a community and as a nation, we will be safer, stronger, and more unified. So I ask you, will you take that pledge today? If your answer is yes, then you can go to www.respectanddecency.com. You can get a shirt for yourself. You can get a shirt for your whole family, your team, everybody that you care about. Hey, buy a shirt for somebody that you disagree with, right? And you can both wear the shirt. That would be great. You can always give gift cards and allow people to get their buy their own shirt, whatever color they want, whatever size they want. And of course, we're always accepting donations. You can find, aside from the website, you can find us on Facebook. That is where we are most active. So Facebook is just Respect and Decency. You will see the emblem of the shirt and the logo. It should be pretty easy to find. So,
Brian, one of I am going to listen to what you just said over and over again. I can't believe that you just came up with that this morning. So, expressing, I think, the way so many people feel right now. I was asked by someone why I started this podcast. And one of the most powerful reflections that I had in really trying to create a forum to talk about positive stories, things that are motivational, people who are going out and trying to change the world and trying to make an impact is because the way that we speak to one another, and specifically on social media, led me to realize that our opinions are not our impact. Our opinions are our opinions. Our impact are the things that we do so that we can raise the water level for our communities and for our society. And you, through this, I think, are embodying that. I want to thank you again for coming on the podcast. I want to encourage anybody who's listening to take the time to go to respectanddecency.com to purchase a shirt so that we can support causes, and that so that you can also, silently, remind people that respect and decency are some of the most important values that we can hold, especially hold close to our chest. So Brian, once again, thank you for coming on the podcast. This has been an enlightening conversation.
yeah, thanks for having me, Jake. It's been a pleasure.
All right.